All right. Well, can you hit that button for me? Well, no, I need to do that. I'll do that on the computer. I apologize. This one. Thank you for being willing to go. All right. Well, good morning, Erica Davids. We want to welcome you to our second installment of Joyful Moments for our course, which is called Motherwork, Reimagining Survival and Joy. We are spending the semester diving into or on like an investigative journey to uncover what motherwork is, but also to challenge, define, stretch, and deeply understand, you know, what motherhood is, what survival is, what joy looks like for Black mothers. We may bring in other mothers from other backgrounds as well, or women who want to be mothers or are other mothers. So thank you for joining us today. I specifically wanted you to come because I don't think that I can remember thinking about or like being pregnant or being a mother or like my whole mother journey with you without you or Tyra there, right? Because we were down in somehow we got to Clarksville, Tennessee, of all places.
Right.
Right. And that's where our journeys began. I want to have you start something I forgot to do, but I want to just give you an opportunity to introduce yourself to us. Just a quick introduction of yourself.
Okay. Good morning. Yes. Nope. Good afternoon. My name is Erika Latifa Davis. I identify as a Black woman. I use she, her pronouns. Erika means great ruler. Latifa means gentle and pleasant. And I always joke that my mom tried. I trained as an architectural engineer. I'm the mother of three amazing children. Um, Wife to an amazing, artistic, intelligent, articulate man. We've been high school sweethearts and married for 25 years just last month. And I have been a mother for over half of my life. My mom reminds me that I was never interested in motherhood. I was like, oh, I'm just going to spoil my nieces and nephews. And then here I am, on this journey as a mom, as a wife, as a partner, as a woman, and getting to connect those things together in a way that is often surprising, fun, sometimes heart wrenching, and also nothing I would regret at all. Although there are days when I go, remember, I wasn't even gonna have no kids, right? So just to be a little bit, tell a little bit about myself. I trained as an architectural engineer from Tennessee State University and graduated. A wife started what I like to describe it as I graduated in June, started college in August, turned 18 in September, and was pregnant by October. By the time I graduated on time in an architectural engineering degree program, which is normally 5 years plus co-oping with the Corps of Engineers, graduated, married, and pregnant with our second kid. And when someone asked me, how do you do it? And I was like, it's a blur. I don't know. Not doing it wasn't an option, right? So, you just can't stay focused on what your goals are and they start manifesting. So I'm really glad to be in this room talking with you all, sharing my journey with you all, and hope you guys have a little bit of fun. I'm here for a fun time, not a long time.
All right, can you start us? Thank you for your introduction. Can you start us off just talking about your birth journey, like becoming a mother, your deliveries and things of that nature?
Yes, being a 18-year-old mother, I'll make y'all laugh, is that I went to the doctor one time. I had taken an antibiotic and it made me sick and I thought my water broke. And I go into the doctor and they're like, no, you just peed on yourself. It's like, I'm so embarrassed. On top of that, when they went to do the exam, the lady stopped and looked up at me and she was like, you didn't take off your undergarments. And I was like, who just walk around taking off their undergarments, without any. That's how unprepared I was for engaging with the medical community as a mother, as an 18-year-old young woman. And our first delivery, I was in labor for like almost a month, just slowly dilating, slowly, contracting. And there was a band or some type of separation, and they were concerned that our son would be born or have some type of strangulation during delivery. And they're like, well, you should do a C-section. And I was like, okay, my mom had 3 C-sections. Oh, sure, no problem, no biggie. It was all of my kids were delivered, all of our children were delivered with Apgar scores of 8 and above, which means they were healthy, which is not always the case with cesarean births.
Mm.
And my kids were quiet, which should have been a clue that that was
Mhm.
just the beginning, but not the end, right? So our son was born and he was like so quiet and so perfect. And he's so cute. He's still very, very handsome to this day. And I didn't really know what to expect out of being a mom. We spent 3 weeks with my mom and then we moved to Tennessee. And when I got a call right before we left to move back to Tennessee to go to school for the next semester from the Corps of Engineers. And they were like, hey, you want a job? And I was like, tell me more, right? Because the idea of being a new mom and going back to school that first semester, I was a little nervous. So I went to school, I took one class, and I was working 40 hours a week with the court. And then I got to go home and be home and not like have homework and study halls and those kinds of things. So I was really um, grateful for that opportunity and learned a lot about system admin. Lisa will tell you, I'm like, oh yeah, I was working with the system admin. So it'd be like a control alt delete. I got all these little tips and tools of things that I just was exposed to, little shortcuts, little hacks to, make my technology journey a little bit easier. And the same with my parenting journey as well. So we're both college students. I'm architectural engineer at Tennessee State. My husband attended Austin P in mass communications, and he is an artist. And we supported each other going to school and graduating from school and buying our first house before we even graduated college and those kinds of things that are more challenging today for various and sundry reasons, but always focused on what kind of person do I want to be when I look in the mirror. And there were times when I wasn't necessarily always being that person and I had to make some adjustments. So I like to use a change management adage: plan, do, check, act, right? I make a plan. I'm going to school. I'm going to be a great mom. I'm going to be a great student, you know, um, do all of that and then check. Are we doing all that? Maybe we need to make some adjustments. So giving myself grace as well as my partner, my husband, like maybe we need to not put 5 pounds of chicken on the grill, for the holidays because it's just the two of us and neither of us know how to grill. Like, let's do something different next time. So we had like those little moments growing up, raising our son, moving on towards graduation. I thought I was going berserk. I thought I was losing my mind. I went to a therapist at school and I was like, I've got so much going on. It turns out I was actually pregnant. Did not know, right? I was going to quit. I was like, I need to quit school. And my friends were like, hey, we've started together. We'll finish together. And I was like, who is we? I'm tired. I can't do this. This is crazy. And then I found out I was pregnant. I was like, oh, that makes sense why I don't have the energy to go at the pace that I've been going at this whole time. And Elon's pregnancy was, our daughter's pregnancy was a little more challenging. I had what was happening with that? I mixed the last two up, right? Because it was like 5 years and then there's like 15 months. So it's like 3 years that are a blur.
How to do that. That's where I got that from.
The blur.
No, not the blur, the having the back-to-back kids.
Yes, yes, yes. It seemed like a good idea. And so, you're like, they'll have someone to play with because our son was 5 and then our daughter was born, 5 years younger. And then we have another kid that's 15 months. They're 15 months apart. My mom also did that same thing. So one of the things that I recognized in my motherhood was that my mom was a young mom, my grandmother was a young mom, my great grandmothers were young moms. And I was like, oh, I think that's something I want to do differently for my children. And luckily, the youngest one is 21 now, and I don't have any grandkids yet. I was like, okay, you know, I think that's a thing to celebrate because I do recognize learning and growing, and my brain still trying to build that sheath over the prefrontal cortex that um, that is responsible for impulse control. um, that having that in place would be really helpful, when I was a younger mom and as I continued to grow.
Mhm.
Um, and so I had a very, very difficult pregnancy with our youngest. I was
Mhm.
on bed rest for like 6 months. I worked out at Land Between the Lakes National Recreation Area,
Mhm.
and it was like off in the sticks. I drove like 45 miles one way to work. And so, because I was having some challenges and some complications, um, my doctor was like, yeah, you can't be out in the middle of nowhere and something pop off. So you have to stay at home. So it was a great gift that I got to stay home with our daughter for that period of time. By the way, when I say a great gift, her nickname was 626, built for destruction, um, from Lilo and Stitch. I don't know if you all remember that. And getting to be a stay-at-home mom, because that was also one of the conflicts I was having. We were pregnant when I graduated. I want to go off and get my professional engineer's license. What does that look like for a woman of color? How does that look like for a young woman in the South, in Clarksville, where I need to maybe overcome? Why have you not been working in a very male dominated field? I did interview when I graduated from with like one of the biggest civil engineering firms, and they were like, well, we'll pay you this much. And I was like, what's your benefits look like? I
Mhm.
am clearly pregnant. And they're like, oh, well, you don't get any time off for like the first year. Hmm, is that what I really want to do? Right.
Right.
The type of work that I want to do. And I ended up finding my my passion for public service, which I've always been a public servant.
Mhm.
Like that's why I started working for the Department of Agriculture, and initially started with the Corps of Engineers. And so being a mom, commuting every day. Let's
Mhm.
not talk about, okay, so Elon had like a ton of allergies. So I was
Mhm.
like super granola, like I had to make a bunch of baby food, and like the first, she was allergic to like tuna and eggs and milk, the whey in, the casein, and they were like, just take her off everything. And I'll be honest, she ate tater tots for like 30 days because I didn't know how to wrap my mind around how to care for her. And I'm like, she can't have eggs. That's what you feed a baby, is eggs and applesauce. Or, like, what are we doing here? No oatmeal, no cereal. It was really challenging. My support system, like Lisa talked about, it was a group of women who showed me another way. So where I nursed for maybe 3 weeks with our son, I nursed for 10 months with our daughter, and for 18 months with our last child. And all of those things, commuting, traveling, like I remember I took, sometimes we get to do emergency response or all hazard response at that organization. And so I was like, oh, I'm going to go and do 2 weeks at Bluegrass Army Depot. And I don't remember how old our youngest was, but they were like less than 6 months. I worked night shift for like worked 16-hour nights at, different time zone. Maybe it was the same time zone. All I remember is that I had to pump and get like dry ice and, do all those things. And I came back and our youngest was like, and who are you, strange lady? And I was like, right. So, it was really, that was probably one of the first times I was ever able to surprise my husband. I like was like, I won't be back until for 2 more days. And I like drove all night. I'm like, I'm gonna be home. And he opened the door and he's like, he was like so glad that I was there. It surprised him that so that's been our thing in our relationship as I travel for work. I'm like, okay, hey, but I'm gonna be home on Saturday. And they're like, Mom, we know you're doing it. It's not a surprise. You're not tricking anyone, right? And so, as a young mom, as a growing older mom, I can see that my ability to understand who I am and what I needed to do and what my values were, and to share space a little bit differently as you learn about agency is like, it's important to me, but is it important for other people? I remember one of the earlier conversations about our son. He was about one, maybe 1.5, and my husband called from work and he's like, hey, what are y'all doing? I'm like, we're eating spaghetti. I'm eating spaghetti and I'm feeding Jossie, I'm feeding our son. And he's like, why can't he feed himself? And I was like, cause he's gonna make a mess. I don't want to clean that up. And he's like, well, how is he gonna learn how to feed himself? Hmm,
Mhm.
good point. Good point. Good point, right? Like we were always able to remind each other, like, hey, they got to learn this part, and it might make you uncomfortable or be a little bit of a mess or inconvenience for you. However, this is in their best interest. And we've been really great at partnering around those things, as well as our career, as well as our being parents, what do they call it? Adult children?
Are you?
No. Actually, I just call them the people that live with us sometimes is what I mostly do. As they're, home from school and they're like, oh, our youngest was like, Mom, what if I decide I want to go back to being vegan? How would that impact you? What do you feel about that? And I'm like, well, since you're 21 and I'm not fully responsible for feeding you, I don't know that it would impact me at all. How would it impact you? And they're like, but you're not going to cook for me? Maybe. I don't know. So, getting the chance to step back a little bit and to find the fun and to share my lessons and then let them learn their own as a mother, um, as a partner in life, really. How does um their masculine energy emerge? How does their feminine energy emerge? How do they embody it? What's important to them? And how do I remind them that? And that's usually just by asking questions and being curious and, trying not to like fall into that judgment of, I got like an old black lady inside of me who'd be like, we don't do that. Right. And then I'm like, wait a minute. I don't do that. Do you do that? Tell me more. Why do you do that? Why do you decide to be invested in this thing? And I really love watching them when on their food journey, because as a young like vegetarian pescatarian in Tennessee, and heaven forbid the 10 years I lived in Montgomery where I ate macaroni and cheese and sweet potatoes all the time, you go when you first learn about eating differently, you're like, oh, I don't eat that, right? There's this judgment of, oh, I don't do that. Well, why we don't, that has too much high fructose corn syrup. Now I'm like, yeah, no, thank you. I don't have to do all that explaining of my position. And I'm really not on a position. I'm really in mission, which is just to be at peace and to share love and to promote and empower everyone that crosses my path. So it may or may not be fun. It may or may not be comfortable, right? Um, but it's always from a place of love. And that's one of the rules that I say rules, criteria I shared with my children. Is it true? Is it necessary? Is it from a place of love? And that helps you not behave so petty. And even that little distinction between who you are and what you do, being able to separate and differentiate those things, um, helps you to grow as a person and understand and offer grace to yourself and others as well, right? Nobody's just one thing. I like to, introduce myself. My name is Erika Latifa Davis. I don't really have a lot of, some of my friends have nicknames for me. Thank you, Dr. Wright. But I don't have a lot of nicknames. But when you ask me who I am, that's a whole different conversation. How I show up, how I walk, how I engage with my community, how I engage with in conflict, how do I engage with um, stakeholders, or, you know, the lawn guy who was here the other day, or the pest control guy who was here this morning and took off his shoes. And I was like, oh, okay. Do I want to have like, yes, slippers for somebody walking around with their feet in my house? I don't know. I had not thought about it, but what does that look like? What does that look like? So I spend quite a bit of time working with young women and in advocacy in the workplace and in the community, helping them to understand what it is that they want to do and how can they do it and what skills and gifts do they have to do that. So for me, motherhood has been about teaching. I'm a certified Clifton Strengths coach. And so I love to talk about like, what's your superpower, right? What's that thing that you're really good at? And so I did that for my kids a lot, and they would like hate when I go to a new class. They'd be like, Mom, don't come in here with crucial conversations. You can ask our daughter. And she'd be like, you made me read Who Moved the Cheese. I said, well, now I did not read that book. I thought it would be an age of, yes, I did. I did offer her. She's today is still traumatized. I'm never reading a book, a self-help book that you give me, Mom, because Who Moved the Cheese is, like conflict talking about it. And I thought, oh, it'd be cute. Who moved the cheese? That's cute. No, no.
Can you hear me now?
I can. Can you hear
Okay.
me?
Yep, I can. All right, I want to take a pause right now and
Yeah.
see if there is any questions from students.
Oh, I got questions for y'all though.
Do you really have questions for them?
I didn't
Okay.
write them, but they were things that were interesting to me that what stood out for you from those two articles that, I asked you to
Okay.
take a
Okay.
little time to read.
We
Yeah.
can do it that way. Yeah. I did want to hear you talk a little bit. I mean, in shifting that way too, I did want to hear you talk a
Yeah.
little bit about your experience with wanting a VBAC.
Oh, yes. So in little old Clarksville, Tennessee, my OB-GYN was like, yeah, Erica, no. Because our second delivery turned out to be a cesarean as well. Milan was she was breech. And they're like, well, we can turn her, but you have already started labor, and the statistics around, successful turning and delivery, it just got a little bit more complex, especially having already had a cesarean. So when we got pregnant again, and my husband and I both looked at each other like, how are we pregnant again, right? At 8 weeks, when our youngest is 8 weeks, and where you been? What you been doing? I was like, okay, I definitely want to spend more time with this VBAC thing. I really want to do it. And so I looked at all the research, and there was like 0.0021. I can't find the article I read because that was back in 2003. But there was like this article or several places where it said like 0.0021% chance of death
Mm.
with uterine rupture for VBAC. That's not even the other thing. I think it's like a dissection or something if my, uterus just decide to split open and do something crazy. So for me, that's non-existent. You drive with greater risk of death and mutilation and dismemberment statistics, right? For
Mhm.
my husband, though, that was untenable.
Mm. Mm.
And we did not actually, we talked about things, but it was like I said what I said, you said what you said. We employed a midwife, and she turned our youngest because they were also breech, right? And they turned them as well. And I was like, he was just terrified I was going to sneak off and have a baby by myself. And I was like, I would never, rob you of that opportunity. However, I'm not going to this hospital. So
It,
say it again.
it didn't help that you had invited the community to the hospital.
Oh, no, it didn't. It didn't. It didn't. So I was like, because like my husband and I, we don't really argue, but we understand each other. And so I understand when he is this immovable object, and he understands when I am that. And so I called the midwife over. He was like, are you? He made me stay at my mother-in-law's house for like a week when he went to work because he did not want to leave me at home. He was like, yeah, you up to something, Erica, right? And he was, I don't know that he was right, but he might have been um on to something. So
The
I'm
right
at home. Yeah. And I
observer.
was like, I got to get this baby out because I cannot stay at my mother-in-law's house, who I love tremendously. I can't stay here another week. Like on Christmas Eve, we thought the baby was coming. On like the week before Christmas, we thought the baby was coming. And we're calling everybody. We're going to baby. And my husband's like, who having a baby at home? Right.
Yeah.
He
Yeah.
was not up for that. So I'm at my mother-in-law's house, and I'm like, she should just like, she got my back, woman power. And she was like, I think Erica back there in labor. You like calling me out. So we called the midwife. My husband's like, did you call the doctor too? We went to Vanderbilt, which is like a number one trauma center. They also had a really great neonatal, care unit and surgical delivery. I even saw a doctor there, and she was like, so what you trying to do? I was like,
Yeah.
I'm feedback. And she was like, yeah, we don't advise that. And I'm like, yeah, I understand. Thank you. I hear you. And that's what I'm trying to do. I
Mhm.
also took natural childbirth classes. I was like, we are doing this granola gorilla style.
Mhm.
So, long story short, I'm laboring. The midwife came. She had to turn the baby again because the youngest wasn't trying to be in the right position. And I was like, so you gonna come to the hospital with us? And she was like, absolutely not.
Mm.
I was like, why? She's like, I don't have hospital privileges. So
Mm.
when I come to the hospital, I can't help you in the way that I think you expect me to. And I know I've been telling you this, Erika, but you don't seem to be listening, and you might be right. So we got in the car, called one of our friends, called Lisa, called Tyra, called Angelique, and my friend got in the car, rode in the back seat while we drove to Vanderbilt. I was like, if I'm going to a hospital, only going to Vanderbilt, because if I can just hold out, I'm
Mhm.
gonna have me a VBAC, right? That was the plan. Right. Y'all are all probably like, this girl is crazy. Yeah, my husband probably was saying the same thing. My mother-in-law later told me that she was thinking about getting on like um anxiety medicine, because I was so like VBAC, VBAC. I didn't want to talk about it. I didn't want to accept any other reality. I wanted to have a vaginal birth after cesarean.
Mhm.
Not only after a cesarean, after two cesareans. So
Mhm.
we go to the hospital. I'm like dilated to 9. I was like, yes. It was like 1 o'clock in the morning. I was like, this baby about to come. Woo! And then they sucked, I would say, Brunhilde or something on me. They like put this old school nurse who was like, get in here, get in this bed, and you're gonna labor like we teach you at the hospital. I'm like, this is not what I prepared for in my Bradley natural childbirthing classes. This is not the position. I want to walk around. She was like, yeah, no. And because my husband agreed with her, I had no, like, I was like, and Lisa and Tyra were like, no, Lisa and Angelique was just like, yeah, we're not arguing. Like, they recognized the immovability of my husband's
Once he
persona.
talking to us and he kind of looked at us, and I think Iberfall, I remember Iberfall, I don't remember what he said, but it was something to the notion of, I'm not gonna be in here with this man and his wife while she having a child. I'm leaving. And so once he exited,
Yes.
like once the men start exiting the room, we were like, we love you, Erica, and we support your VBAC. But you want
Yeah, it was so crazy that and he was great. He was like helping me breathe, but he also was like, yo, how much of this you gonna do? Because I'm
your
not the person, like I have a lot of emotional fortitude. Pain, if I think I'm gonna stub my toe, I'm gonna say ouch. So imagine me in labor with that level of pain tolerance. So um
VBAC? I
it
can
was
still
it was
I can still
hard.
see us standing around you. Like I can see him standing in front of you
Mm-hmm.
and us
Mm-hmm.
on the outer side. Like it was dark,
Mm-hmm.
kind of dim.
Yeah.
It was,
Yeah.
yeah.
I remember I had to go to the bathroom and I was like, can I get something to eat? And they were like, no. I was like, what? Lisa, bring
Yeah.
me something to eat. What are we talking about? Like, who are these people? They're not here to tell me what to do. I am the Erica, right? And my husband was like, yeah, I agree with them. Wait a minute. What?
But we still were on your side because we
Yeah.
drove all the way from Milan to be
Mylan.
in the middle of the night just to be there, to support you with it.
Yes.
Yeah,
Yes.
it was a serious community thing. Like we was gonna get the VBAC.
And my husband is like so introverted that in hindsight and with wisdom, that is likely not the ideal birth that he wanted, right? He probably wanted it just to be he and I, and and we just didn't talk through those things, and unfortunately. And so during the time where I was like in the bed, trapped by the lady. My friends was far away in the corner, like we ain't got nothing to say. We good, And my husband was in the bed and we were breathing, and I was sleeping between contractions. And he tells me now that the our youngest's heart rate was going down with each contraction.
Mm,
And
mm,
I didn't know that. And so they brought in the lady, the neonatal OB-GYN specialist that I had met. And she's
mm,
like, well, Erica, what you come here for if you're not going to let us have a C-section? And I was like, oh, if something go wrong, but I got this. I got this, I'm Zena. And they were like, oh, okay. I also didn't know that Vanderbilt did have a midwifery department, a
mm,
department of midwifery. I didn't know that. And
mhm,
so, the first doctor was like, yeah, we can help you. And then the other doctor, when everybody else, the real staff came on, they were like, yeah, we don't
mhm,
do that here. That's too much of a risk. And I
mhm,
did not agree with them. And although in like thinking about it, like I didn't believe it was real. A
mhm.
0.0021% chance. That's still another zero in there, right? Like that's not, there are other things we do that are greater risk that no one has a problem with. However, a lot of them are survivable, and uterine rupture, undetected uterine eruption has a real, fatality for the baby, right? I
Yeah.
didn't think of that as a reality. And my husband was not, he saw that as a real risk, and I did not. And
Mhm.
so, although our youngest had like the highest APGAR scores
Mhm.
um, after birth, and are an amazing kiddo to this day. They go to the University of Spoiled Children in California, and
Oh,
yeah, and all of our kids, we talk about the reality of life, right? We talk about what is it like in the doctor's office? How do you advocate for yourself? How do you listen? Because I don't know if I was great at that.
mhm.
I'm sure there were um um there's some opportunities to like hear and find the middle ground. So I do a lot of like mediation and alternative dispute resolution work, because a lot of times people feel like it's either or, right? You're going to have a VBAC or you're going to do so and so. Well, those are positions, but mission is we want a safe and healthy delivery. What does that look like for me? What does that look like for me in preparation, during, and after? And so one of the things that I shared those two articles for is because, like, look at how that is defined differently 10 years ago, and then 21 years ago or 28 years ago, when I was, in the throes of the medical industrial complex, learning about creating life. It was interesting to navigate, and it was important to be informed. I don't know if I was a great listener, right? I always felt like it was me versus them. Erika, we're
Mhm.
not going to do that. Who is we? I don't have to do anything but stay black and die. You get to choose what you're going to do. And
Mhm.
then we're going to meet somewhere in the middle. And I'm really good at meeting somewhere in the middle now. And wish I had, done a little bit more of that during, you know, the medical interventions that brought forth three amazing, sparkly children that are now, I used to call them baby adults. Baby adults. I don't know if I feel that way. They're almost baked. They're the
Yep.
almost baked ones in our family.
Okay, let's take a pause. Any questions, comments?
I have a question.
Mm-hmm.
Hello, thank you for speaking with us. My name is Leah Boyd. One of the articles that I read that you told us to read, did you, after your C-section, did you have that feeling that some of the women talked about in the article of like you didn't like fulfill like pregnancy really because like you didn't do the vaginal birth, like you felt like something was missing? Because I know like some of the women in the article felt that way, and I was wondering if you felt that way as well, because I didn't really like realize like women would feel that way since like they gave birth through C-section and they feel like they really like didn't fulfill that part of motherhood since they didn't give vaginal birth. So,
Yes, I did, especially after the first two deliveries. And largely after a cesarean, you're like, my guts are going to fall out. And it's like, get up and walk. And you're like, absolutely not. So, like, holding the baby, you're scared. You're scared your gut's going to fall out while you do anything. By the third delivery, I was like walking at 1 week post, delivery, and carrying the baby. And I, I was trying to do stairs. My husband disagreed. So we had to negotiate there. But I did feel like something was stolen. I had spent weeks doing the Bradley method for, natural childbirth. So it felt like I missed something because I was comparing it to my expectations.
Mm.
After our last kid was born, I didn't really feel that way. I felt like I did the best that I could. And this is what it looks like. This is what came out of it. And that part is out of my control. At 1 o'clock, I was like, man, I can't take one more of these contractions because somebody, like, I asked for it. Hey, how long is it going to take for y'all to get the cesarean going? Because I was tired, you know. So I think that also played a role into, my adjusted expectations.
That's a good question. Thank you, Neil. Mhm. Any other questions, comments?
I have a question. I'm Avery, by the way. Thank you for speaking with us. I was just wondering how you think your third birth, if it would have gone any differently without the support of like your community and friends being there.
Oh, I think it would have gone differently. I think, like I said, my pain tolerance was really low, so they were a great distraction. Um, they were a good support for my husband as well, or he was like, his best friend, Lisa's, Dr. Wright's husband is my husband's best friend. They're best friends. So they were there kind of like, you got this, like doing that man bro support thing. The whole pregnancy was about community. And that was where, we had the strongest sense of community for our individual parental journey, but also for our growth of our family. And we shared that with each other. So I do think it would have been different to be in the hospital in Vanderbilt, hours away from, our kids and the rest of the family. We would have felt a little more isolated. Um, and I probably would have been less, what do they call it? The like mob mentality. I was like, my friend's here. I ain't doing this, right? And if it was by myself, I might have been like, I don't want to, you know. I don't know that to be true, but I'm gonna assume that I was a little more spicy because I had folks who would one pull me back if I was, doing the most, but also advocate for me when I got tired or couldn't see a way forward. And that's what community does is we all put together our gifts for the advancement of a cause, which is, healthy family, healthy baby, healthy mom, you know.
Yeah.
That's a good question. Other comments, other questions? I have a question.
Hi, my name is Cynthia. Thank you so much for telling us about your birthing journeys. It's been really amazing to hear about your story. I had a question specifically about your first two pregnancies. I think just hearing your story reminded me of my mother's own like birthing journeys. She had me and my brother 11 months apart, and she had the same thing of like, oh, they'll be like able to play with each other. Like it'll be better for them. And I think in the long run, it has been good. But I'm curious to like hear about your like learning experience from that during pregnancy, and then also like, as your children have grown up, and also like how that is how your support from your husband has also um, changed or like evolved throughout the journey.
So the first question I heard you say was like, how was that part of the journey? Like having the pregnancies closed and the babies closed. I do not recommend it. It was a blur. Can you imagine nursing for like 3 years straight when my youngest turned 18 months and she probably still would have been nursing. But a coworker of mine had a baby, a newborn baby. And so we went to the hospital. I was like, oh, this little cute baby. And then I went home to my 18-month-old who was like, come here, give me my, and I was like, oh, you're too big. This is too much. So I stopped the nursing and I had already stopped the pumping. And I was like, I woke up the first night not nursing, like, the sky is blue. The grass is green. It was like amazing because I didn't realize how that interrupted sleep all night long would be like, how challenging it was. And when you have the terrible twos and threes, like for like 2 years straight, and they're learning. And I guess I would recommend it if I were older, right? Because, your brain still is forming until you're like 27, 28. And I was just shy of that, like 25, that it was hard. It was so hard when they were little. I remember the first time I took all three of the children out, I was like, hey, I want us to have Chinese food. And my husband was like, okay. But then he didn't bring it home. So I was like, I'll go get it myself. Come on, kids. I wrapped everybody up. So it's winter. I don't even like winter, right? So it's winter. We wrap the baby up. We wrap the toddler up. And then we wrap the big kid up. And we, got the diaper bag. You got all this stuff. We get to the store. And I'm like, oh, I'll take the baby out last because, they keep them protected. Realized my second kid was a runner. They took off across the parking lot. I'm like, do I leave the kid with the car open? I have to run after the other kid. It was crazy. It was crazy. They are very close to this day.
Yeah.
And so I think the only thing I would say is like, I could have been a little bit, had more resources, tools available to me that I didn't have when they were, you know, growing and growing at the rate that they're growing for the first, 3 to 5 years. That was really crazy town. It was crazy town. We talked about it like, we can't do this again. We can't do this again because, this is one of the things you find out after you get pregnant. My mother-in-law was like, oh yeah, just our husband, your Kaya was like a 10-pound baby. Girl, these ain't 10-pound baby hips. What are we talking about? Like, these are questions we need to start asking before we get engaged and involved in some activities. So I would say it was super fun, because of people like Lisa, like who would come over and see me sitting there. She'd be like, you going grocery shop today? And I'd be like, oh, I don't know. No. She was like, that pile of clothes over there, are they clean or dirty? I don't know. That's a good question. Let me see. Hold on. And she would like bring me out of the fog of, of motherhood. And we would have fun. We would be in the stores. We would go, well, you need to do this and we could plan that. And, having community because, we were from Michigan and we were in Tennessee, we didn't have, my mother-in-law was there, but we didn't have like a big, we both came from really large extended families. We didn't have that there. And then about my husband, the father of my 3 children, he's amazing. I remember the day that I found out that I realized that I loved him and all of those things were true, right? I mean, I recognized I loved him before we had kids, right? So like 16-year-old Erika was like, yeah, why? We got questions? Okay. Cause he's, intelligent and he's artful and he's committed and he's loyal and he, loves deeply and he's careful and he's thoughtful and all those things made him an amazing father, an amazing partner. Now me on the other hand, I occasionally can be a little cantankerous. If you like, I don't know if y'all are on Instagram, but like all the little Virgo, the bad things about the Virgo, that would be me times like 10, right? So I wasn't like, like, oh, it's fun. I was like, no, there is a right way and a wrong way. And I mean my way and your way, right? That's, was kind of how I was. And so I could see how as a parent, he helped me evolve, as a wife, he helped me evolve and I helped him the same way. Like the story of the spaghetti, and he's always like, what do the kids need to know? And the things that we're like a great, perfect complement. If we were to play Jeopardy, I don't know if y'all know what Jeopardy is, but it's the game where they ask all the trivia questions. The categories that I would dominate in, he'd be like, how do you even know that? And then the stuff that he knows, the categories that he would be winning at, I'd be like, ask him, I don't know. So it just makes for a really great partnership, a really great equity, really deep, deep love and respect for one another. And yeah, he was always there. Like, yeah, our daughter, we have one daughter now, and when she was born, that was my second cesarean. I was like, I want my husband to say the birth of the gender of the baby, and he was like, it's a girl, and I was like, what? No, for real, quit playing. He was like, no, it's a girl, and I was like, no, quit playing. Doctor, what is it? Doctor's like, it's a girl. I'm not exaggerating. I was like, nurse, can you help me out? They playing. It's not a girl. Like, I'm not meant to be a girl mom. And they were like, it's a girl, Miss Davis. Let me see. Drop the curtain. I do not believe any of y'all that I have a daughter. What has the world come to? Right. And so he was down for it. He was like, he loved all the things. He wants to be like, he want to be grandpa. Our nephews call him Uncle OG. Like, he is down for the family and the, like, he want to be old. And I'm like, yeah, no, I don't want a minivan and I don't want to be old. And I love you still. Right. So he was a great partner. So I think did I answer all your questions?
Yeah, thank you. Thank you so
You're
much.
welcome.
Put your hand down. You got it raised on your screen. Any
Okay.
other questions? Comments? I'm surprised.
I have a question. Hi, my name is also Erica. I
Woohoo!
spell it with the C.
I won't hold it against you, dear.
I really enjoyed everything you said. You also bring such like a joyful spirit right now to our class, so I'm really like loving our conversation together.
Thank
You
you.
talk a little bit more about like your journey as like as you're mothering your kids from the point of being in your home, but now that they're kind of like older and they're kind of getting to their adult phase, like how that transition has been. Because I've talked with my mom about her transition with us all being out the house now and her kind of being, you know, having an empty nester home. So just talk about that, please.
I can. So our kids, anywhere that we have a place to lay our heads, our children are welcome. Our young adults or the beings we gave birth to, right, that occasionally live with us, they have a place to live. I think we were both, my husband's name means teacher, right? And so and then from a Clifton Strengths perspective, I'm a learner, input, connectedness, achiever, and winning others over. Woo. So we bring that into how we teach and engage with our kids. It's always about the learning and listening to what are they focusing on, what values are they stepping into, and how are they honoring those. And one of the things I want to say is kind of foundational for our relationship with our kids is our ability to listen and ask the tough questions and then also let them have the answer. Like it's not about us being right. It's like, this is what I see. This is what I learned. I remember my mom told me, like, oh, I was telling her something that our son was going through in a conversation we had. She's like, do you remember us having that conversation at the kitchen table when you were a kid? And I was like, absolutely not. So it was like, but I remember when life taught me it was true. I don't even remember what it was, but I remember like, why did you tell me this? Right? She did. I did not listen. So I'm prepared for my children to take what they need, leave the rest. And they've always done that. They've always been very independent, although very connected, right? It's not like out there, I don't care about my mama, and she don't care about me. It's like, I trust you're going to do what you need to do to take care of yourself, and you will ask for what you need. My kids would go like, Mom, I'm hungry. Thank you for sharing. And they'd be like, is there anything in it to eat? Oh, that's a really good question. Yeah. Right. Like we've always been like, you need to advocate, you need to ask, you need to, be clear about your communication. And so as they've gotten older, it was tough being a boy mom, because one of the things my godfather told me is like, hey, for moms and sons, there's that part where they need to step away and also him being our first, right? That sometimes you make an ugly face because you don't know how else to step into your own space to like say, Mom, step back. Like when somebody go like boo and scare you, you jump back, right? So they do that, it kind of energetically in the relationship. And I also wasn't prepared for that connectivity after they left, as they all went off to school. Because I went off to school and I was like busy. I mean, well, granted, I was pregnant and had a whole family, so that's different, right, than my children. But they also stay connected. Like, hey, can we say so and so? Can we're gonna come for the holidays? They don't call all the time. That's, well, one of them do, but they're not like that. Mom, I talk to you 10 times a day, and when they are, we're here to listen. And as they're older, they get to find out what kind of life they want to live and set their own measures of success. And that's what I always ask them. What's the measuring stick? Is that a boundary? Is that an expectation? Is it an unspoken expectation? How's that working for you? Right? Like just being in that mode of hearing them, seeing them, and kind of like following the through line of, oh, this is important to them. So that's kind of the motivation behind that. A lot of the training that I've done, a lot of the studying that I've done has been around using your power of choice. The saboteur is the guardian of your power of choice. And so I'm always like, you get to make a choice. You are fully capable to do whatever you want. You are not free from the consequences of your actions, whatever they may be. And so, that helped with the transition into adulthood for them, because they can do whatever they want to do, but you gotta, you know, live with those consequences and, and like owning that little bit. I remember our son was speeding and he was like, I said, Jesse, why you get a ticket? He goes, oh, because the speed limit went from 55 down to 45. And I was like, really? Because this says you was driving 85, and I don't know anywhere in the state of Alabama where you able to drive 85 miles per hour. So I would suggest you consider you were speeding is why you got a ticket, right? Like that's the conversation we would have about, you know, what's the meta and the micro of a situation. What's this thing you're focusing on and what is everybody else focusing on and where is that gap and how do we resource ourselves appropriately? How do we lean into acceptance when things don't go our way and have faith and hope that, tomorrow will be better or at least different?
Davis,
Yes, ma'am.
how has the transition been for you?
Oh, So I have to find friends because like I've always been one that needs community. So, and I've always had that for our kids. We found churches and organizations that we had to be a part of. And so then we happened to move after our kids graduated from high school. And so I didn't realize I was like a friend borrower. Like all of my friends were my kids' friends' mom. So now we moved to this new city and there's no kids' friends to mom, to friend, kids' moms. Shoot, you know what I'm trying to say. And so, right. I was like, oh, I gotta go like out and meet people in these streets. This is crazy. Right. Like, huh. So it's different. I like quiet. My family is verbose and I get to enjoy the quiet since they've been gone. I did like a silent retreat last fall for 24 hours. And our daughter was home from school. She just graduated from Spelman and she was like, it was hard not talking to you for a day. I said, well, you can talk to me. I'm on a silent retreat. It's not for you. It's for me. I'm not talking. Well, can I write something? You could do whatever you want to do. I'm just not talking. Right. And so for me, I've enjoyed the quiet time that I didn't always take advantage of when they were younger. And also a slower pace. And I got to write more stuff down. I mostly just say I'm almost 50 and my daughter's like, Mom, you're 47. Oh, okay. Okay. As nobody's to remind me of those things. So for me, I enjoy watching their journey as much as they want to include me or as little as they want to include me. And then I'm also enjoying the quietness of the universe. I'm enjoying the universal do and moving slow and taking my time. I'm also retiring in like 2 weeks. So that also will be like, huh, what will that be like? Retiring from a 9 to 5, 40 hours a week. No, I still have these other things that I do, max 20 hours a week, 4 days a week. You know,
So
I get to explore.
you do get to explore. And what are some of the, we as a class, we read Alice Walker's In Search of Our Mother's Gardens. And Walker does a really good job of painting the picture of Southern mothers and the way that they have found their joy, sometimes through gardening, quilting, and different things like that. And that became more of a choice, in the 1940s, 50s, and things of that nature. And so I'm wondering if you were to think about your garden, that thing that brings you joy that you do for your own self, that brings you to that tranquility, that peace, that joy that is an expression and an extension of the essence of who Erika Latifah Davis really is. What would that thing be?
I sing a lot around the house. I sing and I hum. I quilt, I crochet. I knitted one thing. Lisa's son is the recipient of it because knitting takes way too long.
We still got it. We still got it.
Okay, good. I'm
it up so that he can give it to
yeah.
Yes.
Yeah. So I like knitted one thing in my whole life. I've crocheted tons. I like made snuggies. I've quilted quillos, and I'm working on a blanket. So I like slow stuff. I've always been a very fast person. I was talking to my physical therapist yesterday, and she's like, Erica, you just seem so calm, but on the inside, you're going like this. I said, oh, maybe. And so I think things that remind me to slow down, you know, go at a certain pace, remember the power of choice, to get up. Like this morning, I got up early and made some coffee and put ashwagandha in it and sun milk and all this stuff. And I went to sit outside to watch the sunrise, but it was like 6:30. It was no sun for a long time. So I still sat there for a little while, like, oh, this is interesting. And watched the day, listen to the day. And I didn't bring my book. I think, did I bring my phone? I think I brought my phone just because people talk about if you don't answer your phone, right? Like, mom's being a jerk. She's not answering the phone. You know, so those like quiet moments and get into those are like being able to tap into my creativity in a new way. You know, my career allowed me to create bridges, amphitheaters, you know, roads, facilities that are still standing. I've taken my kids and my nieces and nephews back to see some of the things that I've built that are still there. And so I get to tap into that creativity in a variety of different ways, like just singing and humming and baking and creating stuff. Like, you know, I've always appreciated technology for what it allows us, but I always ask, like, oh, so now that we don't have to drag our wash down to the creek, you know, to wash our clothes, what are we doing with that extra time? Are we reading? Are we journaling? Are we meditating? Are we being of service in the community? I'll be honest, sometimes the Facebook group for my HOA, they are quite hilarious. So sometimes I do enjoy the biddies going at it. And I get outside in the water. I get outside as much as I can every day because that's what I love to do. And so I find that joy in a lot of places, and I look for it in a lot of places too. Like, I'm like so grateful for that. Oh, that was surprisingly tasty. Oh, I'm glad I tasted that and I never want to have it again. Right. All of those things. I'm like, not toxically positive, also very aware of the variety of ways that these things could show up for us and in a community. And in the, you know, I try not to watch much of the news. I do try to turn on like the local news if you can find it on like I think Hulu Live or something, and go what's happening in the community around us, what's happening, you know, down the road. So that's for me, that joy of motherhood is like still honoring that desire to create in new and exciting ways. And sometimes old ways, right? Like breaking out an old recipe. So, you know, I still will be like, you know, my mom reminded me I was never going to be a mom. And it has been such a joy. My life is way better. My life is way better now that I'm a mom. And like being a mom, you know, I like what you said earlier, Lisa, about you know, being a mom, being a physical mom, but there's so many women and that have been nurturing and contributory in a mothering way to myself and to our children. I mean, that was one of the gifts I always talk about that my mom gave me, is like she drove the bus, but she had us in all these programs. Cesar Chavez at Eastern Michigan, MLK at University of Michigan, and, you know, going to these different programs and putting us in places and spaces where we met other people who were able to pour into us, because I can't do it by myself. And so I've always been very aware that I can't do it by myself, and I love community. So being trapped in a house with 4 introverts during COVID and I'm the extrovert was an adventure in and of itself.
Okay, I'm gonna take a pause. Are there any questions, comments?
Are y'all asleep? Anybody sleep? Did anybody take a nap? It's okay if you need rest. It's important. Dr. Wright might not agree, but it's okay.
No, I do. I tell them that all the time. I tell them to eat fresh fruit, get sunshine, drink your water, and take a nap. I do. I tell you that, don't I? Yes, I do. Yeah, I mean, Johns Hopkins has the ability to grind. This is a very competitive space. So many of us in here are women of color. So many of us in here are first generation, limited income. Like there's just so many things that, spaces that we occupy. And we have to we want to be doing our best, but because of the space where we're at, where we're at right now and the lessons that I'm learning, I'm trying to just state it to them. And I know sometimes we hear these things, right? We hear you need to rest, you need to take time for yourself, you need to drink some water, find some fresh fruit. And I know they may not always listen to me, but I'm hoping that they will like one day pick up some grapes and like really eat them or drink some water and be like, wow, the light in my brain came on.
The grass is green, the sky is blue. Man, what was, Dr. Wright talking about?
So I am hoping that I try to share these little tidbits with them that I feel like I'm maybe being forced to do now because I'm getting older. Like my body is like, oh no, you're gonna sleep, or
I would say you always have a choice.
no,
Only thing you don't have a choice about is stay black and die now. So everything else we're doing is a choice. So
and then be in pain, or you can get some rest and stretch.
Right. Yes.
You have choices.
Yes, we do have choices.
Yeah.
I think where we're going, one of the other things I think about motherhood that I've learned, and you know how you learn something, like you see Maslow's hierarchy of needs. You're like, oh, yes, you got to take care of this for the baby. And I read an article, I've got to re-find it. I want to find it and look into it a little bit more. But it talked about the development of Maslow's hierarchy of needs, starting with, basic physiological survival is not true, that indigenous culture started with self-actualization, and then these other things kind of took care of themselves. And when I think about it, it was always very expansive to me to think about Maslow's hierarchy in inverse as a mother to myself and as a mother in the community and with my own mother and mothers, thinking about knowing who you are, how important that is, and what you're here to do. When I interview folks on my radio show, they're like, oh, I was never being a teacher. And here I am teaching people how to blah, 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 or I was never going to be a healer. And now I'm, helping to heal X, Y, and Z. And so, knowing what that purpose is really important. You can tell when someone doesn't know what that is for them, that they've not listened to that quiet voice and gotten silent enough or looked at the mirror of their soul's purpose, in the reflection of the world around them. You can tell. So, whether you want to be a physical mother, a figurative mother, or that ain't your jam at all, do what it is that you need to do, because we are connected in a meaningful and measurable way, and how you measure it is up to you.
I think I wanted to ask you, you committed to being a mother, like after that first one, like you went back at other times. And at this, where you're landing now, where you're at right now, what would you say your greatest joy of motherhood is?
My kids are so freaking funny. Like we see humor in the irony of the world. And that would be the joy. Like we share laughs and laugh at ourselves and at each other and at the world. My family is full of debaters. I'm not a debater. You can believe what you want to believe. That's good for you. And so watching them have debates, I remember we were at dinner once and my husband and son were going back and forth about like Spider-Man and Wolverine. And then my husband, I don't know if he was losing or what, but he likes to win a debate. And he was like, well, Spider-Man ain't real anyway. And it just blew the whole conversation up. And my son was like, so like those kinds of things where we play between the imagination and the reality of the world and go back and forth. That joy, that dynamic tension sometimes is funny and invigorating and a natural curiosity, a natural draw for my attention. And if I find joy in it, I mean, being a professional, I'm always like, oh, I got to text my sister because somebody just said this, right? Like, and they're like, you're in a meeting, you can't, you got to put on the face, and I don't really subscribe to the face, but because I do have a mug, I meant to bring it today that says I'm not responsible for what my face does when you talk.
Yeah.
Because yeah, that's a reality. But when you want people to understand that you're taking what they're saying seriously, and then sometimes I, that's not the I want to say that's not important, but it's not important in the moment, right? And so how do we we're here for a fun time, not a long time. We're going to experience this life in this world. Humor is like, what do they say? You get more bees with honey or flies with honey. I don't know who wants flies, so I would say bees, but you know, that fun, that joy, finding that joy, enjoying it, looking for it each and every moment. I had a coach who did daily half dozen. It was 6 things that bring me joy. And it didn't have to be like, oh, I need to go to, the Palace of Versailles and have my feet washed with soap from. No, it was like a cup of tea. It was a joke. It was, stretching my back. It was, what was one of them? I don't know. I was thinking one thing that is not a joy is when I was taking Taekwondo with our children. And
Oh my goodness.
I realized it was time for that to end because the kids were like, what's that noise, Miss Davis? You mean my hip cracking while I'm kicking? Shut up, kid. Where's your mama? So, that wasn't necessarily joyous. But when I went to the adult class and everybody's hips was clicking and stuff, it was fine. So like, we in that moment.
Oh my goodness.
Yeah, in those moments, we are all human. And if you can tap into those human moments and you leverage them to connect with somebody else, I feel like that is joy all the time. All the time.
I want to say thank you for joining us today. Before I do though, but are there any like last comments or anything? Yeah, go ahead.
Hi, thank you. My name is Ursu, and thank you for sharing your story here with us today. So after reading the article about cesarean births and mothers feeling like they haven't completed their role as a mother, my mom had both my brother and I like cesarean births here in the States, and so I called her and asked her like, did you feel this kind of feeling? And she said, well, no, because like I didn't really want to push a 10-pound baby. And so,
Right. Expectations can lead to disappointment.
I think like one thing she was like not misinformed, but like I guess she didn't understand was like the recovery time after took a lot longer compared to like her sister or like people that she knew had vaginal births. So I guess my question is like why do you think that cesarean births are like the easy or like considered the easy way out?
Because nobody knows what the recovery is like, right? You're thinking, I blame the media, TV, right? Like every video, you got somebody screaming, and take Bradley natural childbirth methodology. They give all the gory graphic details. It's like Alien or something. And sorry, my hand keeps going up because I talk like this. So people don't know what it's like. They see, oh, you rolled in with the little, head scarf on or the little cap on, and then they place the baby on you and it's done. And occasionally somebody, bleeds out or what have you. There's in any movie about motherhood, right? I'm thinking specifically about like Look Who's Talking. There was that, those kind of movies that were coming out that they're showing somebody like, right? And so you get that repeatedly. It's ingrained. It's like you hear a tree rustle, a leaf rustle, and you think it's a T-Rex. You don't think it's a squirrel, right? And so like neurologically, for every one bad thing that happens, you need to have at least five positive things with that same trigger for it to overlap. Well, what's our ratio when we think about vaginal birth versus cesarean birth? So we just think it's going to be, crazy. And even in the Bradley natural childbirth methodology, there was a little bit of screaming, but they were like, the lights were low and it was all like mood music. And then they went in with the camera and you was like, I was like, babe, I don't know about this. He was like, we can do it. Who was we? Who was we? Because, that looks, I don't know, you know. You'd like to think that you can do it and it's a sign. I don't have anything to prove that recovery was, once I knew what to expect, like I said, I only took Tylenol and ibuprofen with our third. I didn't take Tylenol 3 and morphine shots and all that other kind of stuff, afraid of the pain, because I knew what to expect. I was up walking. I probably might could have walked earlier. I don't know. I didn't try to I was like, I wanted something out the kitchen. I'm going to go get it myself. And I just got up and walked and it was like, okay. And then when I sat back down, I was like, hey, babe, I need some help because down is a little bit harder. I think people don't know that your abdominal muscles are sliced open, multiple layers of them, and what that's like if they don't. Also, one of the things they don't do is send people to pelvic rehab after birth in the United States. And so whether you have a vaginal birth or a cesarean, the one that cut up your middle or the one that's low and you can hide with a little bikini or whatever, you still lose that muscle tone, and people don't know the impacts of that till they start getting a little bit older. It's not just about peeing when you laugh. It's, a lot of other things as well, for your health. So I think I say it's the perception of pain and agony, and I know some people who were like, yeah, my birth was easy. My birth, they had a variety of different birthing experience. That screaming was a very limited part of their experience, but that's not what we see. That's not what's ingrained into us about,
Thank you.
Yeah, you're welcome. That's my thought anyway.
Any final thoughts? Well, Davis, I want to thank you not only for coming to speak to us today, but also just being the mom that goes ahead and leads the trail. All of your children are older than ours are. So, I mean, even now I'm watching you as you are navigating your children, graduating from high school, figuring out their own path. And I'm so grateful that you have gone and done it first, because then I can come behind you and, ask you questions and figure out if you had to do it again, how you might do it again, since I didn't listen to you and went ahead and had that fourth child.
You ain't the only one. What did my sister-in-law say? Having kids is a young woman's game. This is terrible. Yeah.
I want to say that I love you.
I love you too.
Yes, and thank you so much.
Thank you. You all, be your best self, your whole best self each and every day. Lisa, I did have a slide I had wanted to share that get some feedback on this particular talk. Yeah. If you were okay with that. Absolutely. Or you gotta go. Or you want me to, what you want me to do?
Go ahead. You can put it up. We have time.
Okay. It's some questions. And so if this, conversation was important, or you got something from it, anybody get something from this conversation?
They're saying yes. There we go.
Yes. Okay. So I like to have these kind of conversations about the reality of the world. And so here's a code. And so if you take a few minutes to complete this, you'll also get a download for a meditation. I think it's your whole best self. It's this great meditation that, wrap you in full self-acceptance and full self-authority. And it asks you a few questions about, how would you rate this talk? And I appreciate it.
I'm glad you remembered that.
Yes, thank you. Thank you. I didn't know if we had time or not.
Yep, we do. We absolutely have time for you.
And I love this group, right? Everybody pulled out a phone. I've described this to people. People like, what do we do? How do we get on this?
Oh no, these are little tech.
Right. They were like, QR code. Grab my phone.